Welcome to episode number 3 of Get Fresh with Your Feline Week, where we are joined by an uber special guest who's going to be discussing with us all the options that we have available as cat parents for feeding fresh, as well as the naughty and the nice when it comes to the pet food industry.
You guys, tonight we bring you the one, the only Cape Crusader for safe pet food. She is the pet food consumer advocate that created truthaboutpetfood.com, and she is really the unparalleled expert in pet food safety regulations, advocating for all of our pets in the trenches at every AFCO meeting, and bringing us all the knowledge and information we need to make more empowered choices for our pets. Susan Thixton.
Susan Thixton.
What an honor. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I mean, I was saying to Adrienne earlier, I was like, I feel like she needs like a Nobel Peace Prize. And she was like, a Nobel Pet Prize.
I like it.
There you go.
A new category.
Yeah. It's a Nobel Pet Prize. And that is what Susan Thixton gets, because you have been working for so many years, for so long, literally being the voice for us as pet parents when it comes to the pet food industry. And that's why it's so special, and why I feel like this is the perfect place to have you on to speak to our community about the cat foods and the cat foods that we choose. Now, I kind of want to start, if we can, just with a little bit of like why you started doing this. Why did you become such the Mother Teresa of the pet food industry? And then, and what have you found along the way?
A pet food killed my dog. And this was, trying to think how many, it's almost like 31 years ago. I was lucky enough at the time to have, let me back up, a tumor. My dog, I had a dog obedience school and boarding kennel, and my dog was my best friend, and we worked together every day. You know, her and I taught obedience classes, and I depended on her. So we were a team. I had young children. They'd grab a hold of the side of her and stand up. So literally with her, they learned to walk. No kidding. She was just my absolute best friend. And almost overnight, there was a tumor on her pelvic bone. I was fortunate enough to have a veterinarian back then who probably knew more about pet food than most vets do today. Dr. Bruce Catlett was his name. I take her in, and he said, it's probably bone cancer. You have about 2 weeks to tell her goodbye. And I said, what? How? You know, how in the world? And he said, well, it's probably from a chemical preservative used in pet food. And I went, what? I didn't even know what a chemical preservative was. And he said they use it to extend the shelf life. So I made my first phone call. This was before the internet, so I'm really dating myself. I called the company and said, how long will your food stay fresh? And they very proudly told me the food would stay fresh for 25 years. I will never forget that. I mean, it gives me goosebumps right now. So it was a Twinkie of pet foods. Okay. It was the number one pet food, still a very, very popular brand. The same chemical preservative, ethoxyquin, ETHOXYQUIN, is still used in pet foods. You don't often see it in the ingredient list now because the world has gotten educated to that ingredient, but it is used as a preservative in fish meal ingredients and meat meal ingredients. If a preservative is added by the ingredient supplier, not the pet food manufacturer, then the pet food manufacturer doesn't have to list it on the label. They can just list fish meal, when actually it's fish meal preserved with a very dangerous chemical preservative. So there's one question. If your pet food has a fish meal ingredient in it, call the manufacturer and ask them what it is preserved with. Don't point them in any direction. Just say, what preservative does your supplier use? Nature Ox, N-A-T, I don't know. I can't spell. I have to write it out. Nature Ox is a safe alternative. Ethoxyquin is the unsafe ingredient. So from that, I was just so broken. This veterinarian loaned me different books he had, and I read everything. And he continued to educate me as much as he knew. He shared with me. Then with the internet, you could start reading, digging, all kind of stuff, learning. And anybody that would stop long enough, everything I learned, I would share with them, because I didn't want anybody to go through the painful lesson that I learned. So then a group of friends in 2006, a group of friends said, you need to start a website. And I'm like, well, I have no idea what a website. I don't know how to do that. And they pushed, and I just jumped into the deep end of the pool, and here we are.
Wow.
So
you are literally, I was telling you right before we came, and Jay knows this well, you were such a pivotal moment for me. Your information, your website. We joke about how when Jay decided that we were going to feed our cats fresh, I told her she was going to kill our babies. She was going to kill our cats. And she was for a lot longer than I had. And your information and just your very measured, pragmatic, factual, all the evidence, you put everything out there. It was so empowering to have that kind of resource. I'm so glad you had those friends that kind of pushed you into the deep end of the pool, because when everyone that we tell, you've got to bookmark Truth About Pet Food.
We've got it all over our website. We're like, go here, go here.
Yes.
Well, it is scary. We've all been programmed. Okay. So if you think back, we were all told, you don't feed them table scraps. Don't feed your pet table scraps. And if you think about it, like if you offer a cat a piece of raw meat, that's their natural, Mother Nature's choice of food, and
Right.
They won't eat it. And it's because, and we're like, well, we're not supposed to feed them, raw meat. We're not, but that's their natural food. So we've been programmed. When I grew up, my grandparents, you can tell from my Southern accent, I have a little bit of the South in me. My grandparents lived out in the country, and they were very country people. My grandfather hunted and fished. My grandmother and grandfather, they both had a huge garden. My grandmother canned in the jars, everything. So they were very self-sufficient, and they only went to town. We're going to town. They only went to town to get like staples, toilet paper and flour and, things like that. They lived off the land, and their dogs and their cats. When my grandfather would kill a squirrel or a rabbit, he would clean it, and the fur and the innards, the animals ate it. What was left over from the supper table, to them it was a supper table. What was left over from the supper table, the animals got it. You go buy a pet food. Are you kidding me? Their animals never got rabies shots, never got nothing. And they lived, real old animals. So that was all familiar, and they, ate raw bones. That was all familiar with me from a little bitty kid. But in that time frame of when I became an adult, suddenly, you don't give your animals raw bones. You don't give them raw meat. We were programmed. We were absolutely programmed by marketing, by pet food marketing.
Yep.
So yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it continues today. Absolutely. Yeah. But there's more of us starting to go, okay, we're getting it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about like in the human food, right? Like the fresh food versus processed food is very, like, we know now. I mean, commercials now, like I mean, everybody knows that eating a salad is better than eating at McDonald's, right? You know what fresh versus processed is, that if you eat something fresh versus eating from a box, it's going to be healthier for you. Yet there's still this disconnect when it comes to our pets, and a lot of it is fueled by the veterinarians. A lot of it is fueled by the marketing, the pet food marketing, and then when there's a question about it, you ask your veterinarian, and also, no, they need to eat this food because it's complete and balanced and because it is exactly what they need, instead of what about fresh food? It's just not a thing.
Yeah. And I think pet owners tend to believe it's like if the marketing has a baby on it or a pet on it, then they're not going to lie. You're not going to put a pet on there and lie to people, but they do. That's the thing. It is a lie. These ads that say made with real chicken, pet food has its own category of chicken. Every single ingredient in pet food has its own legal definition that is very different from the same ingredient in human food. Right. The book, I'll show you the book. This is the book. Look how thick that book is. That's the rule book, AFCO. Okay, these are all the legal definitions, the nutrient profiles. But just because it says chicken on the label does not mean it's the same kind of chicken we eat. Chicken in pet food is allowed by the legal definition of chicken, pet food chicken, to be sourced from condemned chicken, from non-slaughtered DOA chicken. And they don't have to tell us that. It can still show this beautiful roasted chicken on the label, and there's no roasted chicken in that.
Right.
It's rendered, ground, condemned animal material. It's horrible what they sneak by, and that's a lie to me. That is an absolute lie.
Susan,
I don't
know if I ever told you that my dad used to work in a rendering plant back when
I think we did talk about that. Yeah,
when I was in high school, and the stories of what he said. Now, I don't know if it's still the same because it's been a long time since I was in high school.
She called them and was asking them. They did
the things that he said, because it cost so much money to get, and he was in the factory, right? So he stunk so bad that I had to move out and in with my friend until he finished. Like, it was so bad when he would come home from work. But he would tell us stories about how the grinder, whatever this is, this huge thing that they would put everything on, that they would take, and we all knew from our small town in Tennessee that this was the roadkill plant, right? We didn't necessarily know it was the pet food plant. We just knew that it was the roadkill plant where it was called Griffin's, and they would always pick up the roadkill, and they would bring it to this place. And if you drove anywhere close to that, even with your windows closed, within like 10 minutes, you had to hold your breath or hold your nose because it smelled so bad.
You couldn't hold your breath.
But he would tell us that things would go through that grinder, that they could not afford to stop the grinder if a tarp got caught in there, or he said scissors would get caught in there sometimes, and they couldn't go reach for it, or they'd lose their hand. So they would just have to let it go through. And he was like, well, it's protein. They call it protein. So, like, does that still happen today? Do you think it
of course it does. The same thing there in every pet food manufacturing facility, the good ones and the bad ones. There are metal detectors on the line. So raw ingredients, they might run under metal detectors, or a big, super powerful magnet, and it pulls up any kind of metal. Absolutely. I've talked to people who work in kibble manufacturing plants. A lot of people who worked at Mars kibble manufacturing plants, and they have to clean all the metal off the magnet every shift. There's so much metal, and if somebody doesn't clean it, so then the metal just gets ground up and goes right on. Yeah, absolutely. And that's that far down the road in pet food. Nevertheless, rendering, that's a whole, it should already be cleaned out by there, but it's not. The trailers aren't cleaned. So this whole process gets separated from our food, in that pet food is either one of two categories. Pet food is either human grade or it's feed grade. Feed, like cattle feed, chicken feed, hog feed, pet food is the same as those, but they call it food. And they should not, because nothing of these products meet the legal standard of food.
Right.
The FDA directly allows pet food. I kid you not, I can show you. This is in a response to the citizen petition we sent to FDA asking them to stop doing this, but they still do it. In response to my citizen petition to the FDA, they said it will continue to allow pet food, animal foods to source ingredients from diseased animals and animals that have died other than by slaughter. In 2017, I think, if you remember Hurricane Florence that hit North and South Carolina, there's a lot of confinement farms there, hog and poultry confinement farms. Well, these poor animals drowned. There was massive flooding. The storm came in and just dumped so much water in the area. And I have pictures of some of the farms that were flooded. These animals just drowned in their barns. When the water subsided, bulldozers came in, bulldozed all of those decomposing dead animals, sent them to rendering. They were ground up and sold in pet food with no disclosure to consumers. None. Zero.
Oh my.
We said on Instagram today that this is going to be just a kind of a brain-blowing experience for a lot of people that may not look into this. And I know that for everyone here, for the fresh options, we will get to that. But I do think there's probably, Jay won't let me see the comments because I tend to squirrel. But could you, I really feel like this is an important moment for people to understand. A lot of us, I felt this way. We thought if we were feeding a expensive, good quality kibble, then those things don't happen there.
Expensive doesn't mean good quality.
Right, but I think that you can probably pull this off the top of your head. There are 5 or 7 companies that own the majority of every brand. The ones that are expensive, they all have different names, from General Mills, Smucker's, Purina. Can you name some of these brands that we as consumers feel are safe, quality stuff that are literally made in these same facilities?
Champion Pet Food. Here's an example. Champion Pet Food, who is now owned by Mars, which, by the way, 70% of all pet food sold is owned by Purina or Mars. 70%. Several years ago, there was a pentobarbital recall. Started off with Avengers. Then the next one was, brain just went gone. Gravy Train, Smuckers of Jelly fame owns them. So there was this massive, Smuckers had this massive recall, which actually got found out, they got ratted out by a television journalist. Karen Becker and myself had an interview with this when we were in DC, going to talk to FDA, going to talk to members of Congress. And this journalist at the ABC station in DC said, "Oh, please stop by and let me interview you all." We had a conversation similar to this. And, she's sitting there with her mouth hanging open going, "You've got to be kidding me." And we were telling her pentobarbital. For your listeners, pentobarbital is the drug used to euthanize animals. Cats, dogs, horses. It can be cattle as well, too. Okay, large animals. So this journalist went, I got to find out. So she went and bought some pet foods, canned pet foods. And I think she bought 60 cans, had 60 cans tested, 9 tested positive for pentobarbital. She reported to the FDA. The FDA had a recall. So when a recall happens, the FDA goes into this pet food plant and they do a trace forward and a trace backwards investigation. Trace forward is to see where all this recalled pet food went, to make sure everybody's notified and they pull it off of store shelves. Trace backwards is to determine how it happened, what ingredient it was, who was the supplier of the ingredient. Then they go to that supplier of the ingredient and go, who else bought this ingredient? Well, during that trace backwards investigation, which was done by Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, because the fat supplier, it was a fat in the Del Monte foods, the Gravy Train foods, that contained a euthanized animal, multiple probably euthanized animals. They also shipped the same fat to Champion Pet Food.
Wow.
Now think about that. Gravy Train is a grocery store, bottom of the barrel. Nobody's expecting anything big from this can. It's just a pet food. But Champion, you think, wow, this is Champion, wow, Origin, Cana, this is expensive stuff. It's got to be good. They bought their fat from the same exact supplier as Gravy Train.
Wow. Wow.
So you don't know is what it boils down to. And feed grade, we circle back to feed grade. Feed grade means it can be illegal. It can be euthanized animals. It can be decomposing dead animals that laid there for days. It can be whatever.
A great point that you made in another interview that we watched, and every time you open your mouth, we learn something new. I love you so much. Was for us cat parents that want to know more, right? I always say, just Google who owns this of food that I'm feeding, because you're like, oh, I don't feed Mars, I don't feed Purina, I feed something else. Google who owns that company. But if you were to call, I just lost my train of thought.
Do you recall the pet food company?
Oh, something that you said that was so amazing. If you were to call and ask, is your food human grade? Because there's a lot of stuff about the human grade label now. And they reply with, all of our food comes from a USDA.
They try to school you, right?
Facility.
Instead of being, because there's many.
Explain what that means.
Well, they try to trick you. Okay. Oh, yes. All of our ingredients come from USDA facilities. So if you didn't know the rest of the story, condemned material comes from USDA facilities. And that's not the question that was asked. So that's to me, if I email a company and ask, are your ingredients sourced from human grade suppliers, human edible suppliers? That's a very direct question. If I get that answer back, they just went right around my question. That's telling you something. Okay. That right there is telling you something. Pay attention. There's a lot of good companies out there. And if somebody's trying to be evasive, just go, thank you very much, and go on, move to another company. Don't waste your time. You are literally risking your pet's life with pet food.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, I went through this so many years ago. I take pet food very seriously. I don't care what style it is. I don't care if it's raw, cooked, homemade, commercial, even if it's a kibble. I don't feed a kibble because it is ultra processed. But if you're going to feed a kibble, then you got to make sure that there's human grade ingredients in there. I will not give my own pets anything with feed grade ingredients in it. I will not. And I get, the dirty looks. Somebody wants to give the dogs a treat, and I'll go, wait a minute. What is that? And if I don't recognize it, I'll tell them no. And people are offended, and I can't help that, but I know how bad it can be. I've seen how bad it can be.
Yeah.
So I don't want my pets eating that.
Susan, we do that at the vet's office, even, because like the vet tech will be like, oh, here's, and like it's just like, oh, here's some treats for you. And I'm like, it was so funny. We had Jack and Madison, 2 of our cats, in just for a checkup, and they gave them Temptations, which, is the cat.
Oh.
Lord knows it's the worst. It's the worst treat out there. And they gave them both one, and I was like, oh, okay, it's a tiny treat. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And they both sniffed it and then turned around because they're not used to that.
Good kitties.
I was like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so incredible that, it feels intimidating to us cat parents when you realize that, like the book that you held up, the AAFCO guidelines, the definitions, the things that govern what can go into pet food, that's not something that you can just Google. You have to pay to get that information. I think that's
right.
All part of the industry, just understanding it. It's not about villainizing anyone. It's about just recognizing the truth of the industry. I think so. Looking at how much work you do to understand what these definitions are, and your website does such a great job of really doing so much of the homework for us. I know that when people reach out to us and they even have a brand that I've never heard of, they're like, oh, I'm spending a lot of money on this. You go look on your website and, something is usually there that's informative. The work that you do is so powerful. And I think that exactly like what you just said about calling a pet food company and asking if they skirt around questions. Jay got sent to media departments when she asked just about their sourcing. That it's not necessarily something they want to be transparent about. When you're looking at options, like you said, you don't care what kind of food it is. What are like the top things that I'm just now turning over the bag, or I'm turning over the can and looking at the ingredients? What are some of the top things? You said ethoxyquin earlier, phenobarbital, obviously not on the label, but what are some of the simple things that we can look for
to be safe?
You want to look for the words human grade on the label. Ignore the website. Websites can lie, and nobody regulates pet food websites. So you want to see human grade on the pet food label. That means that all ingredients are human edible. The chicken is exactly the same kind of chicken that's in your food. It means that it is manufactured in a human food facility, a licensed facility. So the safety standards are exactly the same as your food. And let me backtrack a second. So feed grade is not just quality of ingredients, it is also manufacturing standards. Feed manufacturing is not held to food. It's night and day. And here's an example, and I'm going to go with Mars again. I have a Freedom of Information Act requested documents from the FDA of an inspection they did at a Little Caesars Mars canning facility. And the inspection report included a pest control log of the plant. It was employee filled out, and the employee filled out on this form millions of roaches. Millions of roaches. The FDA noted that these millions of roaches were in the food production area. There was no, FDA said, you need to clean the plant up, but there was no warning letter. There was no recall of pet food with millions of roaches in the food production area, because that is acceptable in feed. It's not acceptable in food. So you have to realize that we got a double whammy here. It's not just quality of ingredients, it is also quality of manufacturing. In both of them, you can have great ingredients, but if it's a filthy manufacturing facility, okay, so and nothing of that is going, the only thing you're going to have on that label that guarantees both of those, and it's sort of a third-party verification for that, because any food with more than 3% meat is USDA jurisdiction. Any food with less than 3% meat is FDA jurisdiction, except pet food. But in that human food facility, USDA is there. So there's your third-party verification. The USDA is not going to allow, even anywhere on this facility, condemned animal material, is not going to allow millions of roaches in the food production area. So you have that third-party verification. That's what those words, human grade, on the label. But there are pet foods out there that have pristine manufacturing conditions. We don't know that. We can't see them. Some of them will show videos that do source 100% human edible ingredients, but unless their manufacturing facility is licensed as a human food facility, they can't make that human grade claim on their label. So you have to ask questions of the manufacturer. Ask them, do you have any third-party audits of your facility? What do you require of your ingredient suppliers to make sure that they're safe? A lot of good companies will require a certificate of analysis to come with each shipment of ingredients. That is, the ingredient supplier has to test the ingredients. Okay. And it comes with this guarantee that this is clean. It's not loaded with heavy metals, or it's not loaded with mycotoxins, whatever the case may be, whatever the risk may be for that particular ingredient. So, you talk to your pet food manufacturer. Again, remember, you're risking your pet's life. This is life or death. It is life or death. Yep. So don't just take it lightly. This is significant.
It's absolutely worth a phone call if it's life or death for your family member, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're really kind of beating the proverbial dead horse, which may be in some of these pet foods, with this kind of because I do think that was also pivotal for me. I miss the days, Susan. I miss the days of putting down a trough of kibble in the morning and just topping it off throughout the week. I miss those days sometimes. And then I think about what I'm literally loading up our obligate carnivore family members with. And it's so important for us to understand what kibble is. We always say a fed cat is always better than a starving cat, and we can make choices in that category of food. Absolutely. But I think it is so exciting. This whole week is about the power of feeding fresh, because you think about the cumulative effect of what it is to give our cats the same foods, the same risks, the same level quality of ingredients day after day. And that freaked me out. A week, 3 weeks into feeding our cats a fresh food diet, I was literally shocked at the change in their coats and their energy, in their eyes,
and in their poop,
personality, in their poop.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what happens when you start adding in, and we're talking about this all week as well, just a little bit of fresh, giving them a little bit of real nutrient-rich, bioavailable, species-appropriate foods. It's amazing. So let's
go from the naughty to the nice,
let's
right?
Go from the naughty to the nice.
Yeah, let's discuss just because you do so much work. You put in thousands and thousands of hours every single year to do the research for us, because you know that many of us are not going to pick up the phone and call, and we won't have the right questions if we do, and we won't know the right answers even if we ask the right questions, because we're just our heads are everywhere and we're doing all kinds of sorts of things. Even just knowing the
regulatory bodies that govern the different foods that are out there, I think it's intimidating for most, I would say 99% of us. So to have your experience.
Yeah. And you put in so much
We need to get you all at an AFCO meeting.
Oh, I would.
Y'all need to come to an AFCO meeting.
Yes, we actually
do need to go to an AFCO meeting.
Yeah.
Girls. Sorry.
The cats went, no, don't go.
Don't leave. We have tons of toys here just to distract them.
Okay. Yeah.
Speaking of,
mine are all stacked out, luckily.
That's nice. Yeah. That's nice. We were hoping that they would sleep through, but it seems this week, especially, they like to sleep when we're not going live, because we're doing these lives twice a day. And then as soon as we're on live, then they have to be the crazy toddlers that they are. Anyway, so moving into the nice, you have done so much work, and we have been purchasing your list for years now, because Susan, for those of you guys that don't know, Susan Thixton comes up with an approved list, if you will, a list every single year after vetting all of these different pet food companies that she herself would trust to feed her own pets, cats and dogs. Because
do with a lot of them. Yeah.
How many cats do you have right now?
How many what?
Cats do you have right now?
5 cats and 2 dogs.
Beautiful.
I love it. Okay. So it's very important that you feed the right food. So you put in all of this work. Now, one of the things, because this specific episode, I really wanted to get across to cat parents that there are different options. Everybody gets scared when they hear about fresh feeding. They think, oh, you're on the raw food bandwagon. So, and they get
scary.
And raw is really scary for people who have never known anything but just cat food, which is kibble in a trough, right? Like we did.
Or in a can.
Or in a can, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to feeding fresh or even just upgrading that diet, we have noticed that you have had so many different types of foods available on your list that aren't different food brands that make different things. It's not all raw. It's, we've seen cooked. We see cooked. We see canned even in the past, even freeze dried, different types of food that I would consider for a 101 cat parent. All of that is fresh. All of that is a really big upgrade. Tell us a little bit about do you have any, I know you are so unbiased in everything, and that's what we love about you so much, but do you have any specific type of food that you look for when adding it to your list?
I actually get pet owners send me, have you heard of this food? And it seems really good. And can you consider it next year? And so I keep an ongoing, I've already got 2 foods ready to go for consideration for next year already from pet owners. So I keep them. The whole process starts in the first part of September, and I have a very long list of questions, and they have to answer all these questions. And then based on their answers, there might be follow-up questions, but whatever their claims are, if they say we're using human grade ingredients, and that is a must. I will not give my own pets. It truly is what I would give my own pets. I will not give my own pets feed grade ingredients. I will not. Supplements, some of the foods have feed grade supplements, which if the company does adequate testing, that doesn't concern me as much, and it can be much more affordable. But they have to prove if they say human grade ingredients. Okay, prove it to me. I need to see invoices. I need to see your letters of guarantee from your suppliers. And it's hundreds sometimes of documents just from one company. If they use organic, and I look through every single document, every single one. I even found, this was a couple years ago, a company that I thought was going to make it, and they used like a dehydrated liver, and right there on their ingredient, about that ingredient, it said feed grade. And I went, no, I'm not putting, especially a liver ingredient. I'm not putting a feed grade liver ingredient in one of my pets. Absolutely not. And they didn't even realize, well, it's really good quality. And I said, well, how do you know? Seriously, how do you know? And they were dumbfounded. They didn't know. If it's feed grade, you do not have a guarantee. Even they don't. So once all those verification documents are gone through, then I go, okay, you're in. I'm going to include you. So it's a long process. I'm always really relieved once it's all done. And once, my daughter helps me with designing the colors and of the document, and she helps with the layout of it. And once it's all out there, I get so proud, because it's 3 months of work. It takes me 3 months to get it done.
Is it the same daughter that drew the
Cape
picture
Crusader?
of the Cape Crusader?
Yeah.
Yesterday we had the pleasure of talking with Jen from Viva Raw, and I love this, and I think this is a level of transparency we should all look for in our pet food companies. I said, what was it like to go through that process? And she said,
last year was the first year.
Last year was the first year. She said it was really, I thought she was going to say intimidating, because you ask for so much receipts and this and tracking and all of that. She said it was really impressive.
Oh, cool.
A pet parent that knows how much. And I love that so many of these brands that are on your list, it is their passion, their life's work to create something that is high quality, that they would feed their own pets. And often they get overshadowed by marketing dollars from billion-dollar other pet brands that may sound like fair. So it is really incredible. Speak a little bit to, we want to talk about the options. We talked a little bit about raw and how that's just not where a lot of people are ready to go. I know it was scary for me.
Well, real quick, I also want to say that we've been following the list for so many years, and it's so awesome now that more and more pet food companies are coming out with cat food, or more and more cat food companies.
Yeah, I agree. They are starting to, Yeah,
it used to be a much smaller list when it came to cats, and now it is growing. And I love that cats are starting to be recognized as companion animals that people care about feeding and feeding fresh. So I think
I agree.
But
yeah, I agree.
What would you say was the spectrum of like the different types of food that you would consider, healthy, and that you would consider feeding your cats? For our listeners,
you mean the style of food?
Yes.
My own pets eat home prepared cooked, both the cats and the dogs, commercial raw and commercial cooked. Like freeze dried and dehydrated are so expensive. They are a very expensive option. It's much more affordable to buy a big freezer, which is what we did, and have room for raw food or cooked food. It depends on the animal. So Dr. Lori Koger says this all the time, is you feed the animal in front of you. So of my 5 cats, I have one The two young ones, the problem children that I talked to you guys about, remember?
Yes.
And one of them is still a problem child. But the problem children will eat any style, anytime, anything, whatever you want to put in front of us. We love it. We'll eat it. Then we have the two seniors that are a little bit picky. They pretty much now, they used to eat like more raw, and now they're kind of liking more cooked. And then we have Miss Picky. And Miss Picky, oh my gosh, this cat, if it doesn't look right, her nose is in the air and she walks away, and that's the end of it. And then she will pester you the rest of the night. Go fix it again. Go fix it again. I'm ready now. Go fix it again. Seriously, go fix it again. So Miss Picky is the problem child, but she likes cooked more. So, and that's really, I think, what got my two seniors to eating more cooked, because we had to get cooked in for Miss Picky. And the seniors now decided that they maybe like more cooked. But cats can get stuck. To me, my opinion, they can get stuck so easy. Just like Miss Picky, this is what I want. You can watch me starve because I will only eat this. And you have to go, honey, come on. You're going to eat a little bit of this or you're going to be a little hungry. And that's how we work it out. So I don't allow anybody to get stuck. So we constantly switch it up, constantly with the cats. I don't have to worry. I still rotate things with the dogs, but I don't worry about that as much as I do with the cats, because I know how easily they can get stuck. So, so it's fresh, it's raw, it is home cooked, and it is commercial cooked is what mine get.
I love that. And ours are the same. So right now they get raw twice a day. They get gently cooked. So they're all 5 cats are getting fed 5 times a day. And they get raw in the morning, at night, and then in their snacks are gently cooked and freeze dried. So the freeze dried isn't as expensive when they just get a little snack. Like a couple times a day, it goes a lot further for us. But it is.
He wants to go out. And so we're going to hold him so that he's going, Mom, I gotta go.
Oh, goodness.
We kind of teed this up with letting everyone know that you're going to have the answers for the brands that are out there. Now, we already have a list of foods.
It's the number one question we get. What brand of food do I feed? What brand of food do I feed?
And, I want you to explain to everybody, this is a proprietary list. It is something that we purchase every year. I think it is obnoxious that you charge $10 for it, because I think it is worth.
It's a small donation.
It is priceless. And explain to everyone how that works. You're able to do truthaboutpetfood.com. Why?
I'm only able to do Truth About Pet Food because consumers support me. No manufacturer pays to be considered for the list. I take no money from manufacturers. I don't even let them buy me lunch. Billy, who used to be of Answers Pet Food, who's now Green Juju, teases me relentlessly. If he's on the show, tell him I said so. Because I'll be at an event that they're at and there's store owners there, and we'll all go out and like in the past, Answers would buy everybody lunch except me, and it would be this big table and then me. But I want to look at myself in the mirror and know I can be me and not feel like, oh, one time I don't, companies that are on the list cannot buy it. And this year, one of them did for $100 and I refunded it. One year, a company on the list bought 5 at $100 each. You can buy it for 10, you can buy it for 100. It's the same document. It's if you want to give me more support, which I greatly appreciate, you can. And if you can't afford to, you don't have to. But this, one of the manufacturers gave me $500. I'm by no means a wealthy person. I love what I do. I don't do it for money. And I refunded all that money back to her, because I don't take money from manufacturers. I do not. Consumers support me. And I'm proud of that. So yeah, I get a lot of grief. I get hate mail. How dare you charge for it? Well, I have to keep a roof over my head. Running a website costs money. Going to AFCO meetings, it costs $550 just to walk in the door at an AFCO meeting. Nevertheless, your airfare to get there, your hotel room, your food, all of that. So, to educate, to have these resources for pet owners, that costs money. I have to make a living. I absolutely have. I have my own animals to feed as well too. But that's why I home prepare food too, is because that's the cheapest way to do it. So if you're on a tight budget, get a good recipe. Planet Paws has wonderful recipes. Animal Diet Formulator has wonderful recipes. Go there. It is rocket science, but following a recipe isn't.
Right.
It's really not. And guess what? My cooking has never killed anybody.
Isn't that nice? My cooking almost in once, but
it was a mushroom lasagna made up with like some kind of yeasty thing. I want to reiterate this to everyone here because I love our community so much. Our community is full of some of the most beautiful, empathetic, supportive people in this world that want everyone to understand what it means to be supported by consumers. That is us. This is why we are.
Yeah.
We wait. I can't believe the timing of this, Susan. When Jay had this idea a month ago to do a Get Fresh.
I thought about you in the shower, by the way.
Yeah.
I was in the shower. Susan Thixton.
Yes.
I thought I heard something.
Right. Because this is, and the timing of your list coming out, I feel like this is such an important thing. You guys get it for yourself for Christmas. Understand what it is. We, the consumers, are moving. Susan is doing such a great job of letting these regulatory bodies know that it matters to us what we put in babies' bodies. And you are the one in the front lines that is digging for the truth, finding out the answers, sharing that knowledge with us, and that you charge $10. If you guys can afford to pay more, please do, because the work you do is not done by anyone else.
Yes, it's on a donation basis only. Link is in the description. I just want to say real quick, Susan, because I know we have followers from all over the world. So I want to be sure that everybody knows the pet foods that are on the list are available in the US only, or are there Canada?
There's a whole different regulatory.
No, there's quite a few in Canada. That is all on the list page. It says, and there's maybe 10 brands that have limited international distribution outside of North America.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So the link, guys, is in the description here for you guys, where you can have access to the list. And I'm so excited. I counted them last night. There's like 30 cat foods on the list, which is awesome, which is so amazing. That means that we have so many options to choose from, and they're not all raw. They're not all cooked. They're not all free. Like there's options. Some of them have multiple options within the brand itself. But this is the list that we go to every year. This is the list that when people come to us and say, is this a good brand? And we've never heard of it. We're like, I don't know. Is it on the list?
It is.
It's really hard. That's how it got started. The list got started. Just tell me what to feed. It's too overwhelming. Just tell me. Well, I can't, to me, no one person can tell the next person, well, you need to feed this, because you feed the animal in front of you. and they're all different.
Right.
Your budget might be more than mine. Your budget might be less. So
Right.
I can't tell you to go out and spend $3 a day to feed a cat. And this person's going, I don't have extra $3 a day to feed a cat, and you're telling me that's my only option. Well, now I hate you. So you can't tell but you can. That's what the list does. There's all different styles, there's all different price ranges. I do the best I can to find as many. I've got a tickle in my throat. My apologies.
No, but I
That
love
probably
the
tells me
I love the
it
fact
probably tells me I've talked too much today, is what it is. I should have shut up earlier.
You could talk forever to us, but I love the fact that you also break down the cost for on the list.
Yeah.
So you'll see when you the list, you will see the different brands, the different types. What if you guys are like super picky, which sometimes we are, it's like, oh, what ingredients are completely organic? What ingredients are have the feed grade supplements in it, and how much, and then over on the side you see how much does this cost, and a lot of times we just go straight to that. Okay, let's see what's in our price range. Now what food is this, right? And so it's so easy to read. Plus you break down every single thing so that we as consumers can understand more. And then you have so much information on your website as well. Right before we jumped on, we were backstage, you were talking about how people can get to more information to understand what's in feed grade versus food grade and things like that on your website. Can you go over that again so that we can?
These are just resources so that you can educate yourself about the regulations, educate yourself about human grade, feed grade, and what FDA does not regulate. So if you go to any post, it's not on the homepage, but go to any post, and on the right-hand side of the post is a sidebar. The very top one says learn more. And right there, there's 4 different ones about human grade, one's about the regulations, one's about the different styles of pet food, how common they are recalled, as to how common they are sold. That one's quite interesting. Everybody thinks it's raw food that is the highest risk for pathogenic bacteria, and that's not the case. Dry foods, kibble foods. Since like 2012, this took me a month, or it took me a long time, but the FDA has this database called an enforcement report. So every recall, they issue an enforcement report, and it details how many pounds of pet food was recalled in that. So the recall notice says a minimal amount. A minimal amount was recalled. And you go to the enforcement report and you find out that 3 million pounds was recalled, or 30 million pounds was recalled. So I went in as far back as I could go at that time. And now I've got this all on this spreadsheet and I just keep adding to it. And back to like it's more than 2012. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it's like 97% based on pounds recalled. 97% of all pathogenic bacteria recalls have been for kibble.
Yep.
3% have been for raw.
Isn't that crazy? And yet the big fear, the big scare, which we talked about fears last night with Dr. Judy Morgan around feeding raw, but what the vets will still tell us, what our fears are when it comes to switching our cats to a raw food diet, is all the pathogenic bacteria, is the salmonella and the E. coli and all the parasites and all the scary things that you think when you think of raw meat, because of the way that we've been taught, I guess, or programmed, right?
Yeah, the FDA has done this recent, trying to think of the name. I'm going to my website to see.
It's a great
On
website.
the website. Yeah, Mid America had that recall, and then they expanded the recall. So, and it's a dry food, and it was pathogenic bacteria. And there's been like 8 human babies to get sick. They shouldn't have been around that pet food. But to me, they had all this human illness linked to this because the FDA doesn't warn people the same way with kibble as they do raw.
Yeah.
You know, and if people have small children and they're crawling around on the floor, you don't want that risk for a small child. If you're immune compromised, you don't need that risk. And without the FDA educating the public, as they have with raw, they don't know this. And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
I
It's
hear
so
your
sad.
little one begging you.
I know.
Real quick,
Going,
I want to-
Mom, I gotta go.
for
He's
everyone
all
right
right. He's all right.
their entire brains just lit up that there is someone out here doing this work, making a list of foods that we can feel comfortable feeding our own pets. I want to be clear that just because you found it on the list this year does not mean it'll be there next year.
Nope.
It's really important
That is
to be
correct.
about these brands. So it's one of these things that we look forward to every year. I love the timing of your list coming out right in the middle of Get Fresh with Your Feline Week. And I want to just remind all of us in this community, you guys, we are. It takes a village. You are, Susan. You're the head of the spear. You are doing this incredible work. You're helping us all better understand what goes into our cats' bodies. And I am so grateful that you make this resource available.
Thank you.
Guys, as a community, let's help move the needle and ask for more for our cats. Thank God that hopefully most of us have not been through the motivation moment that you had to live through to put you on this. I'm just so grateful.
You don't want to learn that lesson the hard way.
No.
You don't want to.
No.
I
No,
love
we
it so much.
so go get your list right now. And then tomorrow night, guys, we are going to be joined by formulator Emma Rutherford,
Just
who
like
is
Susan
actually
said,
just like Susan
DIY.
said. Yeah, so she's going to be giving us recipes. We have a list. Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib, as we talked about on Monday night, came out with a book that you can pre-order. Link is also in the description for that, so that you can get some recipes for your kitties so that you can make it at home. And Emma's going to be showing us not just cheaper ways that we can make our cats food, but free ways to actually increase the longevity of our cats through food by using stuff that's already in your fridge. So it's so join us again tomorrow night with Emma and Susan. Cannot thank you. It's so amazing. I know we've been talking about it for so long, and this I'm over. Yeah.
We need to do this again, and I'm so grateful for your time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
So much. Susan Thixton, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. You are saving lives every day. Your work is so important.
Thank you. So thank you all very much.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
See you soon.
And thank you all for joining us.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.